Hello, welcome back to another NFL Division Draft Grades video. Today we got the NFC North, man, and yeah, let's get right into it. Trying to make these as efficient as possible for y'all. Don't need to waste that much time on the intro. So, starting off with the Chicago Bears, obviously NFC North, stacked division. So the Bears specifically had a really great offseason last year. Obviously got Caleb Williams, number one overall, big additions to their offense, but they did not live up to it because they still had some lingering issues, if you will, notably a poor offensive line mixed with a lackluster head coach, if you will. Now, they had those problems this offseason. They went out and got Ben Johnson, who was the most highly rated head coach prospect in my since I've been watching football. I mean, people are talking about they give up an arm and a leg for their team to get Ben Johnson, right? But each thing is because they have Caleb Williams and they fixed their offensive line. Probably got three new starters on the interior this free agency, and things are looking up in Chicago. Let's see. With that in mind, let's see what they decide to do during the draft to try and compete with the rest of the playoff teams in the NFC North. Really, the toughest division in football, if we're being honest. So, number 10 overall, the first shocking pick of the draft was made by the Bears when they decided to take Colston Loveland over Tyler Warren, and I didn't like the pick. Obviously, you see the D plus right there. It was their worst pick in my opinion. So what I don't like about this pick, right? Everybody thought that if the Bears were going to take a tight end, they would take Tyler Warren because he's more versatile than Colston Loveland. He does a lot more than Colston Loveland, and the difference between them as pure just receivers is not significant enough to close the gap, if you will, of Tyler Warren just being a better player everywhere else. So, yeah, obviously, I am in the camp that thinks the majority camp that thinks Tyler Warren is better than Colston Loveland. I think even the Bears fans that are completely coping with this pick are like, before the draft, they would have absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, said they wanted Tyler Warren over Colston Loveland. But after the Bears took Loveland, now they're switching up. They're like, oh well, I guess Loveland's better. He's just better than Warren. Like it's just they're flipping on dimes, so you can't take their opinion for it. My problem with this pick is that if you're going to draft a tight end, right, and if you're going to draft a tight end to just be a part of your two tight end sets, because I don't even think Colston. I mean, Cole Kmet's a better blocker. He's more experienced. If you're going to run a one tight end set, you're going to pick Cole Kmet to be in there over Colston Loveland, right? So Colston Loveland is a player with a top 10. That's the problem for me. A top 10 pick for a scheme dependent player who, I mean, let's just say it's a two tight end set on the field. Bears got Swift in the backfield, Odunze, DJ Moore outside, Kmet, Colston Loveland. What's the chance that Loveland's even going to touch the ball in that situation? I'm sure Ben Johnson wants to turn Colston Loveland into his Sam Laporta, and he's going to use him in a bunch of complex ways, and he's going to be a good player. And that's the thing. It's similar to the Emeka Egbuka pick with the Buccaneers. I don't doubt that Colston Loveland's going to be a very successful player in Chicago. With Ben Johnson, I'm sure he's going to figure out ways to get him the ball. My problem is that drafting not a tight end to be a part of certain sets and schemes and things like that with a top 10 pick is just not, it's not the value there. So the reason I have it as a D plus, like I said, I think he'll be successful. But brother, let's just say hypothetically, they would have took Elijah Arroyo, Terrence Ferguson at number 41 overall because they traded down in the second round. If they would have just took one of those guys at pick number 41, and spent this top 10 pick on anything, literally anything else they could have spent this top 10 pick on, that would have been an infinitely better decision than staying at 10. They could have traded down, for example, and picking Colston Loveland. That was a terrible decision. And I'm not going to try and gloss over that fact just because I think the player will be successful in the Bears system. So that's the first thing. Next up, Luther Burden at 39. Allow me, if you will, to make a complete 180 now because I love this pick. It was an amazing pick. I do not understand how Luther Burden managed to fall so far. It was an absolute steal, major steal. He's a day one starter for them. And keep in mind, they lost Keenan Allen to free agency. He's still a free agent. I guess they could bring him back. I don't see why you would at this point, but they lost Keenan Allen. Now you got Luther Burden in there. Dare I say an immediate upgrade over Keenan Allen? Keenan Allen, he didn't have a good season last year. The second half was better than his first half. He was not very impactful last year. In Chicago, I would make the argument that you immediately upgrade at that slot receiver position. Luther Burden now gets to play with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, and wow, what a stacked receiver room. And listen, as much as I just dogged on the Colston Loveland pick, I am very confident that at least, if not both of these guys, let's just put it like this way: 3 years from now, if Colston Loveland and Luther Burden are not combining for at least 2,000 yards of offense, I'll be shocked. Okay. And here's another thing on top of this: the Bears are now building an offense where all these players now are going to be on rookie contracts 3 years from now. Caleb Williams, Romo Dunze, Luther Burden, Colson Loveland, and Darnell Wright for that matter. 5 of your key offensive starters making next to no money. That means the Bears are going to be able to stack a talented roster around Caleb and those offensive skill players I just named. I think Ben Johnson was very smart with his decision to go to Chicago. Their upside is through the roof. Their potential is there. And this Luther Burden pick, I love it. It was their steal of the draft and their best pick, in my opinion. Next up, you got Ozzie Trapillo, offensive lineman out of Boston College. I like this pick. You needed more offensive line depth. Joe Thuney, for example, I believe is just on a 1 year deal. He has 1 year left of his contract, rather. In case you have an injury, now you have a guy, Ozzie Trapillo, out of Boston College, can come in, start multiple positions, I believe guard and tackle. And I believe it was really good value at number 56. Obviously, offensive line had to be addressed somewhere just for depth, if nothing else. So I like this pick a lot for Chicago. I gave that one an A minus. Next up, Shamar Turner out of Texas A&M. Got him at the end of the second round. Like I mentioned, they traded down. They were at number 51. They traded with the Bills to the Bills trade. They moved down from 41 to 56. They moved up 10 spots from 72 to 62, and they got an extra fourth round pick, I believe. It was a good trade. So Shamar Turner with their third second round pick. I like it, right? I believe defensive line had to be addressed at some point. I would have liked to see them go edge though instead of interior. I believe Shamar Turner is versatile enough to where he can play inside and outside depending on the scheme. But yeah, I think they brought in Grady Jarrett and what's his name? Somebody else as well. They already had a few guys in the interior. I would have liked to see them get another edge rusher, but Shamar Turner is a good player. To get him at the end of the second round, I think it's good value. Gave that one a B plus. I like the fact that they addressed the D line in some capacity. Next up, Ruben Hippolyte. What a name that is. Linebacker out of Maryland. I wasn't too fond of this pick. I believe linebacker might be their strongest position group on defense between TJ Edwards and the brother of the other linebacker. Y'all know who I'm talking about. The other linebacker on the Bears who has a brother who used to play safety for the Steelers. Blanking on his name. Edmonds? Tremaine or Terrell Edmonds? No, is it Edmonds? Y'all know the two linebackers I'm talking about in the Bears. They have a very strong linebacker combination. I'm not so sure about spending a higher caliber pick on a linebacker, so I gave that a C. I didn't like that necessarily. I would have liked to see them address safety, right? Because Kevin Byers getting up there in age, and didn't see them do that in this draft. So would have liked to see that. Za Frazier, though, out of UTSA, number 169. Think Tariq Woolen, a ridiculous size speed combination, has an extremely similar build, ran incredibly fast at the combine, taking a shot, very similar spot where Tariq Woolen was drafted. Not saying he's going to be Tariq Woolen because that would mean he's a top 3 cornerback in football. Check the numbers, but yeah, I like the pick. They already have a really good cornerback room. Kyler Gordon, Tyreek Stevenson, and Jalen Johnson, I think. So they have a good cornerback room. But Za Frazier, take a flyer on him. If he works out, amazing. If he works out, it's amazing. If he doesn't work out, it was a 5th round pick. Who cares? So give that one a B plus. Next up, Luke Newman, tackle out of Michigan State. Do not mind adding offensive line depth, but I didn't really think you needed to. Right here, gave that a C plus. Nothing really outstanding about this pick at all. And then 233, Kyle Mangai, running back out of Rutgers. Gave that one a B plus. He's been talked about a lot. One of the amazing running backs in this class. In most classes, he probably would have been a 4th or a 5th round pick, but because this class was so loaded, he fell to the 7th round. Gave that one a B plus. Now, problem with this: could have had Tyler Warren and Luther Burden. Imagine what would have happened if they would have acquired both of those guys. Oh my goodness, what a duo that would have been. And also, Loveland and Burden, really the only impact players in this class. I'm shocked with 3 second round picks. You only got one guy who's going to play meaningful snaps in their rookie season. And then no running back besides Monungai. I mean, you got DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. I would have thought that it would have, went out been a little bit aggressive trying to get somebody else to compete for that starting job. But I guess they're happy with their running backs that they have on the roster at the moment and no safety. I guess after Kevin Byard, you're gonna, cross that bridge when you get there. So solid draft, really, really solid draft, highlighted by the Luther Burden pick. Their whole second round. I mean, when you have 3 second round picks, it's hard to have a bad draft, right? But all their second round picks I thought were either very good or amazing. Not much. Well, they had some good late round picks. Frazier, Kyle Monangai, and they didn't have a terrible pick. Colson Lovin, I didn't like that one. I explained why. But yeah, they had a lot of draft capital and they made it work. So 6.19 decided to make that a B plus. Very good draft for the Bears. Next up, Green Bay Packers. Obviously, they were hosting the draft this year, so they were a host team. A lot of fans showed up to see who they would draft. They are a really good out of division team. I believe they went 1-5 in the division last year. I believe 6 or 5 out of their 6 losses all came from the division. So they're really good against everybody else, struggled to beat the teams in their division. So let's see if these picks make a difference in that case. First up, they drafted Matthew Golden. I gave that one a B plus. I thought it was their best pick of the draft. The reason being, there were some really good cornerbacks available. Listen, I understand the Packers don't have a top tier number one receiver. I don't necessarily think Matthew Golden is going to become that guy. I see Matthew Golden, if he works out, as a Zay Flowers type of guy, even a Jaden Reed type of guy. I don't see Matthew Golden as becoming this star wide receiver one type of guy. I thought the only 2 guys in this class who could be those guys are McMillan and Travis Hunter. Now, that's not to say that nobody else can be, but that's not how I saw it. Now, Matthew Golden is going to come in and be one of their offensive weapons, right? You got Tucker Kraft, who's going to get more touches than him, I'd assume. You have Jaden Reed, who's going to get more touches than him, I assume. Josh Jacobs, obviously going to get more. And now he's competing with the Romeo Dobbs and not the Bo Meltons, the Dontavian Wicks, the word. He's competing with those guys. I think he'll get more than those guys. I think he'll be their wide receiver 2, probably the 3rd or the 4th option in the offense. But at number 23 overall, I just think cornerback. It just comes down to I think cornerback was a bigger need for the Packers than wide receiver. That's all it comes down to, right? Jaire Alexander, even if you think he comes back, which is still up in the air, even if you think you can convince Alexander to come back and play for the Packers, he is permanently injured. He has damn near missed more time than he has played the last 3 or 4 years. So even if you convince him to come back, there's no guarantee that he's going to stay or be healthy. So they need more help at the quarterback position, in my opinion. Could have drafted Will Johnson, Trey Amos, Benjamin Morrison, a whole list of guys, right? They decided not to do any of those things. They stuck with Matthew Golden, and I did not love that pick. Next up, Anthony Belton, number 54. Didn't like this pick. Did not like the pick. Gave it a C plus. It was a slight reach, first of all. Anthony Belton, nobody had him as a second round grade. And on top of that, Shavon Revel, Trey Amos, both available. Both available. I mean, you allowed a conference rival, the Commanders, to get their hands on Trey Amos when you could have took him right here. And also, you had some great edge rushers on the board at number 54. It's like the Packers had real needs, real concerns on their defense. Decided to ignore those to draft a guy who's going to be offensive line depth for you. I don't love that. I don't love that by the Packers, so gave that one a C plus. Not a great way to spend your second round pick. And talk about your day 3 pick, or sorry, your third round pick, the second of your day 2 picks. Savion Williams. I don't like this at all. I really don't like this pick. Gave that one a D plus as well. Thought it was their worst pick. So let me explain this to me, right? I understand that what's his name, Christian Watson, is pretty much going to miss the entirety of next season because he suffered a injury very late last year. So you got these are wide receivers you have above Savion Williams, the depth chart. Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Dobbs. So at best, Savion Williams is your number 5 wide receiver, but he's a versatile player. He can also play running back. So these are the running backs you got over Savion Williams. Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd, I believe is his name, and Emmanuel Wilson. So congratulations, Packers. You spent a 3rd round pick on a number 5 receiver and a number 4 running back. Congratulations. I don't get this pick. I really don't. Especially like if you didn't draft a receiver in the 1st round, then it would make more sense. But you already drafted a receiver who's going to play meaningful reps for you. So what does Savion Williams do? Like, what is like? It would not shock me at all if Savion Williams just like plays less than 100 offensive snaps this year. Because where do you use him? How do you get him on the field when you have so many players better than him at multiple positions? I don't get it. I don't understand it. They had real needs on the defense that they just completely ignored with this pick. It's a luxury offensive pick when you have real defensive issues. That's my problem with this pick. So I gave it a D plus. And it's bad for Savion Williams because he's a guy, he's a talented guy who should have gone in the top 100 that now will get no opportunity because he got drafted by a team that didn't need him at all. So I don't like it all around. Um, Next up, Baron Sorrell, edge out of Texas. I gave this a B plus. It was a steal. He was like the last person in the green room to get drafted. I don't know why he showed up. I think he's from Green Bay actually, so maybe that's the reason. But yeah, he waited a long time to get drafted. Um, Solid player out of Texas. He will be a part of their edge rotation now, which is something they need to address. Obviously, he's not a great top end player or anything like that, but I like to pick B plus. Good job there. Next up, Colin Oliver, linebacker out of Oklahoma State. I don't like this pick. I think linebackers arguably their strongest position on defense. You got Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker. So add another guy into the mix. Not a bad player, but definitely not a position of need. Next up, Warren Brinson, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Um, you know, nothing. It's just nothing to write home about. It's just you know they just continued to avoid cornerback the entire draft for some reason. I don't know why. They spend this pick on a defensive tackle. It is what it is. And then the last two picks, I do not think either of these guys are going to make the roster. They spent a seventh round pick on a cornerback. Who cares? I mean, like, come on. It's just, I don't think the guy's going to make the roster. So it's like paying lip service to a position of need in the end of the seventh round. You don't get pity points for me from that. So it's just, yeah, that's what it is. So Packers, honestly, I was disappointed. Um, I really, really think they mismanaged their day two picks. They could have had a really good draft here, but I think they fumbled in day two. And day three they did nothing. I mean, like no disrespect, none of these guys are going to have an impact for the Packers. None of them, right? So yeah, after the first pick, they only drafted one player of note in this draft, and yeah, that's unfortunate. Eight picks, one impact player. That's not good. That's not good from the Packers. Next up, Minnesota Vikings obviously had an incredible regular season last year, but they're making some major changes after losing in the wild card round. They're moving on from Sam Darnold to a new, unproven, untested quarterback. So, what the Vikings' goal should be, and what it has already been this offseason, is to make the transition for JJ McCarthy just like college, to where he doesn't have to do anything. He just gets to play on a loaded roster and be a game manager for them. So that was the aim of this draft, and let's see how that plays out. So, first overall pick they spent on Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. Versatile offensive lineman, definitely. Did not think he would go in the first round. That was a bit of a shocker to me, but I understand that the Vikings had a hole at left guard. Sorry, had a hole at left guard, I believe. So Donovan Jackson looks to slide in, be an instant starter, and hey, their offensive line got absolutely manhandled by the Rams in the playoffs last year. So I do not mind at all spending a first round pick on a day one starter on the offensive line, as well as a guy who has versatility and can play tackle if you need him to in a pinch. So I like the player, like the need in terms of fit for the team. Don't love the value at number 24, but it is what it is. I gave that one a B plus. Thought it was their best pick of the draft. Next up, Tai Felton, a receiver out of Maryland. Now it's good value to get this guy in the 100s. It's kind of shocking that he fell that far, but so he's going to compete with Jalen Nailor or Jaden Nailor, whatever his name is, to be your wide receiver three. And if he does, let's just say hypothetically, he wins the job, right? And by the way, let me start off with saying this: the Vikings did not have a lot of draft capital, right? They only had like five picks, I think, so they were already off to a bad start just in terms of like what they had at their discretion in terms of picks, right? So, with that being said, you would think that they would spend these picks very wisely and try to I don't know, get the most out of them, if you will. And they had some real concerns on their defense, I would say, and they did not really address that at all here. So Tai Felton, back to what I was saying, if he does win this battle and become their day one wide receiver three, he has to try and compete for touches against Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. Like it's just I don't see a world where Tai Felton, even if he does win a starting job, if you will, where he's a you know high productive member of there's kind of like a glass ceiling on his production. Just with like even if he shines and becomes exceptional, he's the number four best like most targeted player in the offense. I just don't really see a world where Ty Felton becomes a star in Minnesota because really he really can't. On top of that, having a quarterback who's so limited and like they're never going to be some you know high volume passing offense. I wouldn't be shocked if like 85 to 90% of their offensive pass game is involved in TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison. So that doesn't leave a whole lot of room for Ty Felton, right? I don't even know if they're going to run a whole lot of three receiver sets on the field. And if they do, I think it'll be TJ Hawkinson as that third receiver. So it's like, uh, yeah, I don't love drafting another receiver because like I feel like you could have just ran with Jalen Nailor. Like there was no need to draft Ty Felton here, in my opinion. But it's a good player. Like I said, I think he might be successful here, but I don't love it. Next up, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, edge player out of Georgia. Every draft, there's always a couple edges or D linemen out of Georgia that I've never heard of, but they've just been buried on the depth chart and they've been like, slightly productive at Georgia. I didn't like this pick. I thought they were already pretty loaded on the edge. Like I said, you lost Stephon Gilmore in free agency. You have a need at cornerback. Obviously, no need to mention the tragedy that happened last year, but your cornerback you drafted in the fourth round last year, obviously he's not around anymore, right? So, like, do have a real concern at cornerback here. And your starting safety, Cam Bynum, left you in free agency, right? So you lost two of your star DBs, and you don't address it at all in the draft. It's confusing to me. But next up, they draft Kobe King, linebacker out of Penn State. They already have Ivan Pace, Van Ginkel, guys like that. Didn't really think Blake Cashman didn't really think they needed another cornerback, but Kobe King in the 200s is pretty good value, so I gave that one a B minus. And Gavin Bartholomew. What a name. Thought this was their worst pick of the draft, though. Tight end three. Tight end three. This is their last chance they had to improve their secondary at all, and they spend it on a guy who is just not going to do anything. Let's be honest. What's the best case scenario here for Gavin Bartholomew? It's nothing. So I didn't like this pick at all. Um, Defense got no help. Defense got zero players that will contribute at all in this draft. I don't like that at all. Top two picks, I think they'll be starters on offense, but Ty Felton, that's up in the air still. I didn't like this draft. I did not like this draft with the Vikings. If you have limited draft capital, right? Look at the Falcons. Look at what the Falcons did. They only have five picks. Now they did have three, I guess. Well, they had two. They made a move, right, to get two first rounders. So they had five or six picks to start with. They made moves and they walked away with three. They walked away with three impact defensive players in their set of picks. Vikings got no impact defensive players. I didn't like it. Ended up with a B minus. I had to round up for him. You can make a strong if you didn't like the Ty Felton pick, you can make a strong pick. This was a C plus draft, which is not very good at all. So yeah, depending on how you view the Ty Felton pick, the worst draft what was the Packers right here. Yeah, you can make a strong case if you did not like the Ty Felton pick that this was the worst draft that we've covered so far. And maybe it's because they didn't have that many picks, but this my grading system doesn't really take into account the amount of picks. It takes into account the quality of player. So the amount of picks they had is irrelevant. It's more so just I didn't think they hit on the picks that they made. So yeah, not a great draft by the Vikings. Now let's move on to the Detroit Lions. Obviously, has become a powerhouse, one of the premier NFL teams, even though they did not have an impressive playoff performance last year. Lions they're moving in the right direction, and everybody has kind of what's the word gathered around them and put their arms around them, and like everybody's rooting for the Lions. Like besides your team, I feel like nobody wants to see the Lions lose unless they're like a NFC North fan. So let's see what the Lions did here to try and get themselves over the hump, if you will, and make their first Super Bowl. First off, Tyleik Williams in the first round, number 28 overall, run stuffing, defensive tackle, one of the best, maybe arguably the best of his build, if you will, in the entire draft. My problem for me, Mike Green on the board. Mike Green available. You have a glaring need for pass rush. Mike Green was right there. I just, I don't get that. And then he might not even start. You got DJ Reader. He's definitely not going to play over, what's his name? Aleem McNeil. He's definitely not going to play over him. So you got him competing with DJ Reader. Now, there's no problem with having three good defensive tackles that you can rotate in and out, but, I think you guys know how I feel about pure run stuffing defensive tackles. If you can't rush the passer as a defensive lineman, your value is limited. Even if you're the best of your mold, right? It's just there's certain things that I need out of a defensive lineman. Tyleik Williams doesn't really meet those requirements, but I gave it a B minus. So I mean, I didn't love the pick. I one of the most lackluster first round picks in my opinion. Then they made up for it though because they drafted Tate Ratledge at number 57, plug and play, instant starter, A plus for me. A plus absolutely. It's like they lost what's his name, Kevin Zeitler to the Titans. So you needed a guy. You wanted to get younger at that guard position. Here's the thing, man. The scary thing. If Tate Ratledge comes in, right? Who they got? They got Ragnow, they got Sewell, they got the other guy. I've got the left tackle's name. But like if Tate Ratledge comes in, right, and he's their worst offensive lineman, right? Let's think about that possibility. If he is the worst offensive lineman, the Lions might have the best offensive line of football. Like that's how good I think Tate Ratledge is, how well he'd fit into the Lions system. Like it's just the Lions offensive line is back to being scary, right? It's just I'm worried. I am worried for the rest of the NFL if Tate Ratledge comes in and works for the Lions offensive line. Like it's a situation where yes, Ben Johnson was an amazing play caller, but the Lions still have all the talent in the world offensively to be the best, if not the second best offense in football. Now, next up, Isaac Tesla really did not like this pick. Here's the thing. I didn't like the decision to draft Isaac Tesla for the Lions, right? They already have you have two star receivers, you have a major pass catching tight end. You had a laundry list of guys, right? Khalif Raymond, Tim Pat. You had a bunch of guys, right, in the wide receiver room. Isaac Tesla, I didn't like the pick itself, but here's the caveat, right? These are the guys that would have been on the board for the Lions. Did I get this wrong? Actually, I put number 102 there. I believe this was a third round pick. Let me fact check myself. I believe this was number 70 instead of number 102. This was a third round pick, if I'm not mistaken. Top of the third round. Let me verify quickly for you guys. Yes, this was number 70 overall, not number 102. Okay, so just keep that in mind. These are the guys available when they decided to draft Isaac Tesla. Landon Jackson, stud. Princely Omani stud. Josiah Stewart, in-state Michigan guy, would have been a big acquisition on the D line. Jack Sawyer seemed like a plug and play Dan Campbell type of guy. They passed on all those guys. Traded up. They traded two third rounders in the future to move up and draft Tesla here. So the cost of drafting keep this in mind what I'm about to say. The cost of drafting a potential wide receiver 3 was 3 third round picks while passing up on potential all pro defensive linemen. That is a terrible decision for me. Just a terrible move. Terrible move. But I gave it a D plus because I think Isaac Tesla will be a really good wide receiver 3 for the Lions if he wins the job, by the way. Tim Patrick was really good for them last year. So don't like the pick. Their worst pick, in my opinion. Not even in my it was their worst pick. Next up, Miles Frazier. I got all of these numbers wrong. So I got some of these numbers wrong. Miles Frazier, number 130. Sorry, number 171 instead of 130. So that's why I have it as an A minus. It was really good value at 171 for them. I already mentioned they got Tate Ratledge as their starter, but I'm sure they saw Miles Frazier as like a fourth round option if they didn't get their hands on a guy like Tate Ratledge. So you got really, really good offensive line depth right now and security. If for some reason Tate Ratledge gets hurt, or he doesn't work out, plug and play Miles Frazier. They probably feel really good about that. This is their steal of the draft, in my opinion. Ahmad Hassanin, number 196. They finally drafted edge rusher, addressed that need on their team. B plus, good value. He was an absolute monster at Boise State, but I'm sure the level of competition there is what kind of impacted his draft stock overall. I'm not sure how much he'll play. Sixth round guy. I'm not so sure that he'll play a big impact there, but B plus because they addressed a position with me with a guy who was really good at his level of college. Dan Jackson, seventh round pick. Dan Jackson, brother. If you thought Dan Jackson was getting drafted, he absolutely, positively, you must have thought he was going to the Lions, right? It just seems like a match made in heaven. Dan Campbell type of player all the way. Dan Jackson out of Georgia, glue guy, do it all. What's the word? You know the word, like the knife that can do a whole bunch of different things. He was that type of guy. Jackknife, not jackknife, whatever the fuck you call it. Swiss Army knife of the Georgia defense. Dan Jackson. I give that a B just because he has to make the roster. Like as as a seventh round pick, your goal is just to make the roster, and he has to make some type of plays on special teams. He's just that type of guy. And Dominic Lovett didn't like this pick, didn't decide to grade. I don't think he'll make the roster, quite frankly. So, I mean, just between the guys I named, Khalif Raymond, Tim Patrick, Tesla, Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, his best hope is being wide receiver six. And also, he didn't have a good year at Georgia last year. He took a step back from 2023 to 2024, and he made a lot of drop passes. I don't see NFL when I look at Dominic Lovett, unfortunately. So Lions grade overall. Gave it a 5.67. Decided to keep that at a B. Only one starter, right? Only one starter. They had a lot of picks. Only one starter with the Tate Ratledge move. Tylee Williams didn't love that pick as a first rounder. 3/3 for Tesla is just a terrible decision. And they passed on a lot of good pass rushers in this draft. So looks like pass rush is going to continue to be an area of concern for the Lions moving forward. So this is how it looks. Stacks up for the entire division. No team had a really exceptional draft like I thought the Falcons and to a lesser degree the Panthers did, but the Bears had a good draft, solid draft. Lions had a okay draft, and the Packers and Vikings both struggled, in my opinion. So interesting the way this shapes out, if you will. The worst team in the Bears had the best draft, best offseason, in my opinion, and we'll see if they can close the gap with the rest of these teams who are all really, really good in the NFC North. So that's going to be it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.